cheers, Niall. I was just looking at the numbers there, and as they keep coming in, that we're up now over 160. I said the unfortunate thing about the whole situation that we find ourselves in is that when Dublin find themselves on the steps of Crow Park and the mudslinging starts, no one ever really recognises the work that goes on behind the scenes in the clubs. It's easy to throw the mud about the finances and all that, but the reality of it is what we're doing here tonight has been going on across the board in Dublin for a number of years now. That's maybe the main reason why we stay at the top of our game. And hopefully after tonight, what we go through will help people maybe improve themselves as coaches or take something from it. I don't think we've reinvented the wheel. All we're trying to do really is simplify stuff and maybe change coaching the approaches from coaches, how they go towards their planning, execution and reflection. And every time they do it, then we like to think that they get better. We've a little tool there that we use there to help us along the way, which we're going to go through on the slides that Dave will take us through, and it'll explain things out a bit clearer for us. I'll throw it up here now. Just give us a quick glance. You see that? That's just the cover of the booklet, or as we call our coaching tool. The content there that's inside that we'll go through in a bit more depth. As I say, it's quite simple, a small little book. We're trying to, as I encourage people to go after the resource that's out there. We've just kind of felt that the old system where their player pathway and all the resources are out there, we kind of felt we're lost in cyberspace. So hopefully after today we'll bring things a bit closer to hand, and as we say, we change our practices, and as we all know, better coaches make better players. Before we get going, I'm going to just do a little icebreaker. We're going to unmute our mics and just say what we see, assuming that you don't have someone playing the drums behind you or a Kango hammer going. If the house is quiet enough there, and unmute and then just say what you see. Just say what you say.
Center circle.
Middle of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Out to nowhere.
Middle of nowhere, yeah.
Wishbone.
Yeah. Golden Eagle.
Good.
Worm your way out.
I can see people scream at the screen, not realising they're muted.
Yeah.
What's in the picture, Rod?
Moving mountains.
Moving mountains, very good.
Moving mountains, yeah.
Yeah.
Saving for a rainy day.
What's he saving?
What's he
Saving his
saying?
breath.
Ice boy.
Nice spot.
Oh, yeah, good. Private eye, yeah.
All the aces.
Holding all.
Holding all the aces.
Oh, the aces, yeah. The last one here to set the tone.
Face off.
And your game.
Game face. Put your game face on.
Okay, well, I'll hand you over to Dave now to take us up the mountain.
Ollie, will you just throw in throw them all in.
Dave, just before you start there, the final count is 167, which is considerably under 220. So do you want to do the dance now, or do you want to leave it till the end?
I'll probably wait till the end. My top shoes are upstairs, so I'll just run up and get them towards the end, right?
Okay, cool.
Okay, so starting off with the player pathway. So for those who are unaware, a player pathway is basically just a way of dividing a player's journey from the start when they come into a club all the way into adulthood, and it divides into different specific targeted sections. Most sports have a player pathway. You'll find a player pathway in rugby, you'll find a player pathway in ice hockey, you'll find a player pathway, the FAI have one. And then underneath then the organisation's pathway, you'll find that most clubs have their own pathway. And tonight what we're looking at doing is looking at the pathway from a slightly different perspective than you may have seen it before, if you've seen it at all. So if we start off at the bottom there, the fundamentals nursery, that's our entry level stage. And the emphasis there is on the fun in everything we do. They move on then to the learn to train phase, and like the name is on the title there, that they're learning how to train. So training becomes a bit more structured. You might start to see kind of common warm-ups and group warm-ups at that age, and a bit more structure around, or a bit more focus around the training. Then they move into the training to compete phase, and that again, it does exactly what it says in the tin. That's where they're learning how to compete at the weekend. So the focus isn't on winning at the weekend. The focus is learning how to compete. And at that stage, we might see an introduction of kind of tactics or principles of play or style of play. And then we hit the last phase, which is the training to win. And that's really when winning is the focus. Now, there's some real world practicalities for back down the mountain. I always say to coaches in the learn to train phase, ages 10 to 12, winning shouldn't be the focus. However, if you have a team of 11-year-olds and you lose every single game that year, there's a chance you're not going to have a team on under 12. So winning shouldn't be the focus. Winning is still important, especially to the kids. Competition is important. It just shouldn't be the focus. So in the nursery, our focus is on having fun and teaching them the movement skills and the very basic skills of the game in a very, very fun environment. In learning to train, we're bringing a bit more structure into the sessions. It's still very fun. We're still not focusing on winning, but there is a bit more structure there. Training to compete, we're learning about tactical systems and how to deploy those on game day. Again, we're probably focused a bit more on winning, but it's not the overall focus until we get to the top of the mountain. And then that's, I suppose, when people want to win. We turn up as adults because we want to win. Throw it on there, Polly. Yeah, so we've divided the tonight into 4 different stages, 4 different areas: movement and athletic development, fun games, skills, and SSG at the bottom. SSG stands for small-sided games. Small-sided games to me basically is anything that's not 15 aside on a full-size pitch. If we're getting really technical, it's anything that's not 15 aside and not using a full-size pitch. So with that definition in mind, we probably all use small-sided games in some way or another, okay? Before I go any further into this, does anybody notice anything about the percentages? Anyone have any observations they want to unmute themselves and just shout out?
Doesn't equal 100%.
Yeah, so there's two things that people usually pop in with. The 2 people who unmute themselves there, hit one of them on the head there. They don't add up to 100%. So if you look at the nursery, or look at 10 to 12, or look at 16 to 18, or any one of those categories, the percentages don't add up to 100%. And that's done on purpose, and it's something that we'll touch on a little bit later in the presentation. The other thing that you might notice is that the percentages change from age to age. So in take movement and athletic development, our yellow grid there. In the nursery, that might be worth 20%. As we get to 16 to 18, we have it down to 15%. So a couple of things about those percentages. Those percentages can change depending on the needs or the attributes of a club or a team. They can also change depending on the type of year, or the time of year, sorry. So if you take an 18-year-old playing on a minor team, chances are they're going to do a lot more kind of athletic development type exercises before the season starts. And when the season is in full flow, chances are they're probably going to be doing more kind of skills and small-sided games. So those percentages might change throughout the season. They might change from club to club. They might change from team to team. And we're just giving a loose guide here. So this is just what we've come up with. That they can be tweaked by an individual coach. And they're just trying to provide a reference of what we think is applicable. So if you look at our percentages, so if we've broken down some activities here into different percentages under each heading, okay? So if you look at the headings, we have our 4 that we just talked about: movement and athletic development, fun games, skills, and small-sided games. We also have 2 at the bottom there, and that's what accounts for the missing percentages, so to speak, from the last slide. And again, we'll touch on transition time and self-reflection in a couple of minutes. For now, I just want to explain the concept of the percentages. So if we have 10% for movement and athletic development, That's the minimum target. And we want to hit that 10% specifically with exercises that fall under the category of our movement and athletic development. So an example, if I have an under 14 team and my percentage that I want to hit is 15% for athletic development. If I throw in a single leg hop exercise into the warm-up, I throw in a little bit of dynamic running, so a game of chasing or something into the warm-up, and I throw in a little bit of squatting right at the end of the warm-up. Each of those are worth 5%, and I've hit my 15%. Now, later on in the session, when I'm doing some fun games or I'm doing my skills, and particularly when I'm doing my small-sided games, we're going to be ticking the box for athletic development there as well. So that's not to say that our 10% for athletic development only happens in one particular area. There is a lot of crossover throughout these activities in the different categories. But what we're saying is if something is worth 10%, that we specifically make sure we hit 10% with some targeted exercises or games or movements. And then if extra percentages get tacked on at the end of the session, so be it. We end up with a bit extra, brilliant, but we've hit our minimum, and we've purposely, consciously hit our minimum with the selection of stuff we put into the session.
Yeah, a transition time, guys. This is something I stumbled upon on a course I done during the last lockdown on online in America. The Positive Coaching Alliance. It's made of all the sporting organisations in America, and it's headed up with the likes of Phil Jackson and other head guys who would be well known in America. And one of the things that stuck out to me on one of the courses I done was like transition time. And if you look at that, clear your head, the events of the day can influence your performance as a coach. Try to use this tool called transition time. I mean, there's two examples there. So at the end of the day, she's going to have a cup of coffee after that she's ready to coach. The second one is something that it reminds me a lot of myself, and I do see it a lot around about the transition time. Hard day, the opposite arrive at training and he switches off his phone. And it's something that stuck with myself in particular, because what I do is I'm on the phone and I'm walking around swinging the cones in one hand. I'm on the phone before I start my session. I had been, and since I decided now to take this approach, I do leave the phone in the dressing room. It's only afterwards then when I realise I go in and I look at the amount of activity that was on my phone. That was something I was generally trying to deal with in the build up to training session and maybe in the early parts. So be it if we don't get a text, if we don't read a text that such a body won't be here. And if by all means, some people will be different. They might need the phone for access, but it's certainly something to try implement into your approach to training. And if I sum it up in layman's terms, and many people do ask me about it, I do say, for example, if you're a carpenter, is your full-time job and you're coaching your kids' team at 6 o'clock, you're a carpenter till 5:30. From after 5:30, you're now a coach, or try to switch into the zone of being a coach. It just makes things a bit, you'll find the session runs a bit smooth. You're in a clearer headspace when you're going into the training session. And then on a self-reflection, then Dave is taking on.
So you would have seen in the I think the second or third slide when we had the percentage in the different categories, those percentages add up to 60%, and we've weighted self-reflection and transition time both worth 20% each. That just gives an indication of how important we think they are. In terms of self-reflection, myself and Paulie did an entire workshop on self-reflection in the first lockdown. That's kind of how important we think it is. And when I was talking to somebody about self-reflection before, and they gave me a line that kind of stuck with me ever since. If you've been coaching for 5 years, if you're not self-reflecting along the way versus if you are self-reflecting along the way, the coach who's self-reflecting along the way is continuing to grow and continuing to evolve and continue to look at new methods and new ways of doing things. And they've gathered 5 years of good experience versus the coach who's doing the same thing every time and not really looking back at what they've done, not really growing, not really evolving. And the question that was posed to me by this person was, have you got 5 years experience, or have you just done the same year 5 times over? And I think that's a really, really important question. In terms of self-reflection questions, did I prepare? Was my energy good? Did I give good feedback? Did I listen? Did I keep my cool? And how was my overall session? It's important not to get bogged down just in the content of the session when we're thinking back how it went. We need to think about our own behaviours as coaches. But also we need to think about how the session went and did the kids enjoy it and was it beneficial to my team. In terms of percentages you see in front of you, those can be tweaked again. And in fact, even the questions can be tweaked if you really felt that you needed to. What I mean by this is I might find that I always keep my cool. I never lose the head, let's say. That's not entirely true, but let's just say for argument's sake, I never lose my head, never lose the cool. So I don't maybe need to weight that at 4%. Maybe I weight that at 2%. And maybe I find sometimes after a long day at the office that my energy sometimes isn't good. And if I know that that's really what I need to target, I might weight that question, was my energy good, with a little bit more percentage, just to really go after it and target it. And again, these can change from coach to coach. They can change from session to session or from time of the year to time of the year. But very, very important that we're really looking back and reflecting on how things went, how our behaviours were, and not as a tool to beat ourselves with, not as a stick to beat ourselves with, but as a tool to just encourage a little bit of growth, a little bit of evolving and betterment as coaches, I suppose.
Okay, guys, and there's basically one of the pages on the book. There's a sample session there for an under 12, and there's the percentage targets you should be hitting at that age that we've come up with on the page on the bottom. So after every session, did I hit me 10%? You can write up with my jazz. I might have only done one skill there. I probably should have done 3. You're only getting 5. So just you're being honest with yourself. Mark it up and see how you fare out. As Dave said, it's not a stick to beat yourself. It's something to make yourself better. So what we're going to do now, guys, we're going to break off into breakout rooms. There's 4 different ages. It doesn't really matter what age you're going to be in, because at some point you either will be heading towards that age, or if you're back on the merry-go-round again, you could be starting and you might go at things different, or you might be able to lend your experiences to someone else in that age group. There's the hurling, camogie and football and ladies football across 4 different ages, and we'll go in for 15 minutes. Let's see what we can come up with session-wise, come back out, and we'll go a bit of feedback from a couple of the
A high catch.
Could maybe have them in pairs. You also did a varied game with us in that session as well, Ashton, where instead of just throwing it in the air, getting the person who's the catcher, get the person who's the throwing the ball to just let it drop halfway up and get them to run. I know at under 8s is probably a bit much for them to expect, but maybe just throw it in the air and the person opposite the catcher has to catch it in pairs. That doesn't have to be based on ability either. That they don't have to be separated on the basis of ability there either.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, if you have enough adults, like, you know, mentors or whatever, you can have a few mentors standing around holding the ball, kind of, like a shoulder level for them, so that they have to jump in the air and mill around in a square, maybe a 5 or 7 meter square.
Yeah.
Catching whatever the nearest ball is, move on to the next.
Yeah.
Come on, pass to him and back around. You're all the time competing against the line that are next to you.
Yeah. So it's like a relay kind of slalom thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the person who's hand passing, are they moving up the line after one, or is the person who's hand passing staying for a few, or what do we think?
Probably back to the start of the queue, or back to the end of the queue, should I say, and then the next man goes, and then you ask the lads who are receiving to switch with lads in the line.
But the kids will want. My view of it is that the kids will always want to play a game. Sure. And like, what are you playing on a Saturday? At under 11, you're playing 13v13, are you? At under 11? Are you back at
11 aside, I think.
11, yeah. So they should be given that opportunity, I would say, at some point in the session.
Okay. And
Niall, could I ask you something?
Of course.
Just regarding the skill focus on with the jab lift, what I meant by that was, you know, I'd have 3 minutes for that, but you could have 3 or 4 different skills in that circle, you know, so you could easily do maybe 4 or 3 minutes, which is pushed out to 12 minutes, and it's all ball contact that they're getting through the whole lot of it.
And you sort of use that as a warm-up in and of itself, or just directly after the warm-up, usually as a...
Well, depending on the age, but I think the stuck in the mud and all that is great, don't get me wrong, but I would use all that for a warm-up, because they're getting ball contact and they're moving constantly. Right, they might get a 30-second break in between, but, you know, I said jab lift, you finish jab lift, you do hand pass, you finish hand pass, you just get the ball, the girls throw the ball in the air, the other girl catches it. So it's they're getting the contact, but you'd easily get 12 minutes out of that, maybe more.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, are most people involved with up or say 13s up or 13s down? Just as a quick show of hands before we go.
At the moment, I'm not involved with anyone now. I've other things on, but
Okay.
Up. Yeah.
Up. Okay, cool.
Engagement was very good there, Paul.
Yeah.
Was 15 minutes wasn't enough.
I actually thought the clock was walking down when I seen it was down 6 minutes. Oh, Jesus, there's only 6 left. Yeah.
I think the lesson that I'm learning with these is no matter what time we put in the breakout room, every single session we come back was like that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Flies in.
Ah, disaster. No time left.
Yeah. Went very quick.
No boy.
That went way too quickly, lads.
15 minutes. You're gonna have to extend that, lads. 15
20 minutes. I'd say you need 20 minutes on that.
I'd say that if you had 30, you'd probably use 30. It's one of those, you know. It's
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's back anyway.
We were only warming up when you said get out.
So are we. We were stretching.
We were warming down. We just did catchphrase for 15 minutes. That's it.
I think everyone's back in there.
Yeah, everyone's back.
Do you want to mute everybody, Dave, or?
I can get to say thank you to the guys I was working with in the group there. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, lads.
Ando, do you want to throw up your session plan there and
yeah,
that's not how we can see where you come up with.
Right, guys, listen, first of all, well done to everyone. Super stuff in my own group. The interaction was really, really good. I've done this a few times, so my typing will be quite shorthand because I know from the last few times. But as Dave said, guys, 15 minutes. I've done this with 12 minutes, and 15 minutes wasn't enough for me today, which is brilliant. And that shows that we're after having interaction. So, guys, my session was an under 11 scoring session, right? So, first of all, we went in for a warm up, and we went with monkey tails and snatch the bacon. So snatch the bacon is like rob the nest, guys. So with monkey tails, straight away, they're working on their movement, their agility, and it's a fun game. And you're hitting 2 or 3 of the different. We're hitting movement, athletic development, and we're hitting fun games just in our warm up. Snatch the bacon, exact same again. It's a fun game. You're hitting your movement and you're hitting your athletic development. Also, you're hitting your skills because you're going in, dribbling your slitters back out to your station. So we went with the station format, activity format. So we went with activity 1, we went with messy bedrooms. So the idea of this is we had 2 big squares, a team either side, and we're striking the ball on the ground off the left-hand side, off the right-hand side. Again, we're bringing competition into it. You're bringing a fun game into it. They're playing against each other, and you're bringing your athletic development, and most of all, your skills. You're working on left-hand side, right-hand side. You have everything into it. Our station and station 2, we went with no man's land, but we put a bit of a twist on it. So we're striking out of the hand this time. And what we did with striking out of the hand, if the ball landed in the square without anyone catching, they got a score. But if the other team caught the ball, they got 2 points. So we were working on 2 skills of the game, literally striking out of the hand and also high catching. So you're rewarding the children for high catching. And the thing again, it's a fun game. You're working on skills without the children knowing they're working on skills, and they're having fun and laughter. Station 3, we went for relay races. So the relay race the lads went with, they went with poles and ladders. They went with beanbags one end of the course and slitters the other end of the course. They're soloing through the poles with the beanbag on it, through the ladders, but with a fellow player chasing them. They reach the end of the relay course, they roll, lift the slitter, and they're soloing back to the station. So that you're bringing a bit of competition into it, but you're also getting someone to chase them, which are stimulating match situations as well. Small-sided games, we went with 3 games, so we went with 15 minutes for small-sided games. We went with an end-to-end game, so you have 2 end zones, and the kids are literally dribbling balls from end to end. If they get a ball into the opposite end, they get a score. How to adjust that is dribbling from end to end, but they can knock each other balls out and rob each other's balls as they're doing in the game. what do we go for next? We went with just a normal game, but we went working on high catching within the game. So striking and high catching. So we're going back to our no man's land, but we're bringing that into our game situation. And we're giving points, we're awarding points for high catches. Awarding 2 points for high catches and 1 point for a strike that's into a high catch. And our last game was 4 goals game for space. So just getting the kids thinking about space. So there's 2 goals either end, and it's a full game, but the kids are thinking about space. So if 1 goal is blocked up, they know to turn and go the opposite side. The whole thing about the session was fun and enjoyment, and we wanted the kids to leave the session with smiles on their faces. And I think we hit most of our targets in that, and the session was an hour long.
I'd say even without even cross-checking on that, you'd know that you were hitting them. You know what I mean? There was a lot of athletic development. You know they're having fun. You're getting your skills in there. Like at these ages, like if you're putting out sessions like that, I don't think you're gonna have too much of a problem long term down the road. Anyway, I'll tell you, cheers for that, Anto. Aisling, do you want to throw up yours and let's have a look?
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Got your camera, yeah.
Is it up?
It's coming up there now, yeah, fire it away.
Yeah, so we had under 8s football. So what we were discussing for our warm-up, so we picked the skill and then we said a few different drills that or stations that we do for the skill. So for the warm-up then we said we wanted tag games, so games such as like the bean game, flush the toilet, the turtle game, just loads of them games where the kids are working on their movement and, like Anto said, their agility and stuff like that without them even knowing. So like with that, you could just set up a square and there's so many different games that you could play in that. So we said 10 minutes for that warm-up. So then we said we're going to do it in stations as well. So station 1, our skill would be our punt kick. So we had that we could be kicking it in pairs. So the whole team has a pair, has a ball between 2, and they're working on their punt kick. And then we could just say, if you had stationary goals, that you're working on kicking the ball over the bar. So you'd get 3 points for kicking it over the bar, and 1 point, say, for through the goal. So they're just working on the punt kick. Station 2, then we said hand pass. So they're working on their hand pass. So you could have a square of 4 on the outside and 1 in the middle. Starting off, they could use their throw and catch, so just throwing it to each other, and the basket catch. Obviously then the player in the center is like being the piggy in the middle, so they're working on trying to shadow, try to get the ball and try and get a hand in, and then you'd progress it on and do a hand pass. So you'd be still playing piggy in the middle, but you're just using their hand pass instead. So then the third station, then we said we'd work on our high catch. So what we could do is, if you had enough mentors, the mentors could hold the ball out to the side. The players have to run, jump up, working on jumping up and getting the ball from the mentor's hand. Or you could have them in pairs facing each other, and one player throws the ball up and the other player has to run in and catch it. So then finishing off, then we said we could play something like small-sided games. So if we're playing a small-sided game, it'd be a modified match. You could have loads of different rules. So one of the rules would be everyone getting a pass before your team can score. You're focusing on your skills. So you could say, okay, for now we're focusing on our hand pass or your punt kick. Or else we said you could also finish with, say, a game of rounders. If we finished with a game of rounders there, you'd be working on the punt kick and the hand pass. So the fielding team would be hand passing the ball to each other, and they'd also be working on their high catch. So you're kind of just trying to incorporate all the skills that you just worked on in your session at the very end, and then obviously ending with some fun.
Yeah, and actually, looking at it, the way you have done it is you've really gone after the skills in the station-based one there, and you've gone beyond that. You probably got 15% on your skills, and the small side of games is reinforcing everything you've done in your skills. Your games, who doesn't love flip the turtle, flush the toilet? Who doesn't love that one? You're well on course there to smash it down at that stage. Yeah, cheers. I'll tell you, we'll take one more room actually. Jerry Savers, do you want to pull up yours?
You can't copy Aisling's now.
I can try. Is that coming up there now?
It is coming in now, yeah.
So we had under 14s football guys. So we started off with, we have a football per player. So every player has a football. So there's going to be loads of touches in the start of it. Coach would be calling, so it was Barry that would be calling for each skill. So it could be putting the ball on the ground, picking it up left foot, picking up right foot, solo right, solo left. There was then stretching and lunges and stuff like that to get our athletic development in. So we were getting our athletic development into that box too. But the whole thing was maximise touches, a bit of fun. The fun game, we had a few little fun games. So there was one where it was in a circle, a little hand passing game where you have pass to the middle, you run around the circle. It's kind of duck, duck, goose type, but you're running around, you get back to your own position before the ball gets to the circle. That was the fun game we had. Then activity 1 was split into groups. So there'll be 10 kids gone to one coach, 10 gone to another, or whatever it is. So you split them in half, so coaches would have more time to spread their time out. There was kick passing involved in it, so it's just back and forward movement the whole time. Kick passing left, kick passing right. So it's all about getting the ball on both feet, and you're also obviously practicing catching then. So we're moving on to our next kick passing one. We had groups of 4 different styles of kicks and receiving the ball. So the coach would be calling this one. So we could say, I want you to receive a low ball. So it could be a group of ball, me deliver the ball to you, Paul, Anto's running off your shoulder, Anto then delivers on to the next man. So it's constant movement, following your ball and working the ball all the way back around and off the shoulder. Then we were moving on to backs and forwards. So this would be two groups again. So for our small sided games, backs and forwards. And what we were getting into, we were going to type in the principles of it. So it could be one bounce only, one bounce or better, off the shoulder, silent games. So we were going after the principles then, what we were looking for. So first touch, so if the ball was to bounce off the shoulder, the coach or the referee would call it for a free if you didn't catch it cleanly. Now we got stopped there with the time, we ran out of time.
Yeah, cheers on that, Jenny. I think the last 2 sessions in particular, because there's a good age gap between them there. If Jerry was to do that session with an under 8, do you think it'd flow? My opinion is probably it wouldn't. I suppose if Jerry used to take Ashland's session and do it with the under 14s, you'd probably have a bit of crack and the lads would enjoy it. But if you were to do it on a regular basis, are you going to develop at the same rate as everyone else at that age? Would the under 8 kids enjoy doing that? They probably wouldn't. It wouldn't flow. Trying to explain it to them, running off the shoulder and all that. So it shows the importance of what we're talking about. And we have the ages broke down. It's like you're trying to stay on track as close as we can to the player pathway, because the reality of the whole player pathway thing is, on paper it's great as it goes, but when you throw competition into, which is the beast in us all, from under 12 and the gradings and then the failure comes into it, it's not as easy. It doesn't come as natural to stay on course, you know. So when we talk about reflection, that's what we mean by reflecting. Can we stay as close as we should do to the player pathway? Because when it comes competitive, it's not as easy. Are we going to hope for the fella going through on the goal in a championship final or the failure final and encourage him to shoot on his left foot? Or are we going to, Jesus, give it to someone in a better position, or don't kick on your left foot? Ideally, when we talk about it, we say, yeah, that's what we want. We want fellas encouraging to do that. It doesn't happen. The beast takes us over us all in competitive football. But if we're reflective on it and we can try to stay as close to the pathway as possible, I think that's a win, if you're being realistic about things, you know. Can you just take that down for us, Jerry?
Nice.
Okay, we're coming to the end of it there now. I'll just have one more slide. I do have it on the back of the booklet. This is basically at the back, just monitoring your journey. You're tallying up your percentages particularly if you're new starting out, and see how you're faring out across as time goes. I'm not realistic enough to now say, okay, we want to get 100% every time. My target in me that we should be getting every week as a must would be our 80%. And the reason why I say 80 is because the other 20, our transition time could be over control, because if you're stuck in traffic going somewhere, I don't know anyone that's in control of anything when they're stuck in traffic running late. So, 80%, if you can get up that other 20 from our transition time, brilliant, but definitely want to be looking at 80 and below it, no problem, because we all have other stuff that goes on in our life that distracts us from the point I make on it. If we drop down the graph and we're hovering at 50, we have to, for more than, if we're flatlining that, we have to ask the question, why are we down there? And then if you can rectify why we're down there and get back up as quick as we can, as I said, because everyday life does affect us, and we're not coaches full time with a team we're involved in. So get back up as quick as we can. The last thing we go to on this is for the resources. the template that you're working at in there, guys. There's a sample one there we've done with Luke and Sarsfield's there about, I think it was about a couple of weeks ago. Our reflection document is on it. This will go out to everyone that was on the email. So you can stick in whatever age team you were there. You can do your percentages and all, your self-reflection. This document can be edited, obviously yourself. When you're doing your session plan, if you email it yourself, you can do screenshot it. You don't want your self-reflection going anywhere else, but you can. Everything is just at your disposal there. You're doing your session. You can stick your coaches in there and there, your duration, your brief description in that part. Whether you're doing a warm-up, it's the same all the way down. Your equipment on that side, and at the bottom then there's a bit of an overview on it. You can put on all your equipment. Now the RPAs is probably at a higher level or a higher age. I wouldn't bog down on it. And then up here you see here the resources part. This is it's only up and running, and there's still content to go into it, but there's still a fair bit into it at the minute. So you're planning your session. You can go to the resources here. You see we have a part here on our scales. Move well, be well. It's only launched there 2 weeks ago. A lot of good stuff on that. Our scales, gain and possession is all in there. Hold on, get this out of the way. There's your drills there. You can click on them. Resources then. Listen, there's a lot of stuff at your disposal, and I think even myself, I do be guilty of it. Just going in session, I never actually really go after some of the resources, even some of your own stuff that I have jotted down. I tend to, because it's not in my hand, or you can do this from your phone, or you can do it on the laptop if you're planning a session. There's an app that goes for the phone that you can just put it through the app, do your session, send it off to somebody. I don't know whether that's playing. You guys see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, fine. Yeah.
You know, so everything's there is at your disposal. Nearly every
modified game to develop the hand pass technique.
Every resource that's out there, what we've done from the various Leinster Council, Crow Park, and anything else we find, and I will add, we've kind of brought it all into the one portal that you're not searching around for. And I suppose the proof in the pudding that it was kind of needed was it took me a long time to get it all together. If it was that easy, I wouldn't have needed to do it, I suppose. But Jesus, the stuff seemed to be scattered everywhere. It didn't seem to be easy. But we brought it all together here. This link will go out as well on the email tomorrow with the session plan, and you can adjust it yourself. And there's a little videos actually on. If you go in here, you can actually download the session plan as is here. It's this is only the plan. There's no reflection document on this. But when you're in your club wants to use this, you can download it. There's 2 explainer videos there. Listen, he's trying to make it as simple as possible, because, as we said, when we talk about coaching football and all that, when we talk sitting rooms talking about design and stuff, we kind of have the notion that, yeah, this is great, and everyone thinks about nothing else, only coaching their team. But the reality of it is, everyday life does affect us, and getting time to do stuff. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody.
Ollie, will you just share the session template again?
Which one?
Just the session template that you're sending out. I just want to make one point on it.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think sometimes coaches can get daunted when they get a tool like this, and they think, gee, there's more work for me. There's something else I have to do. And we're talking about screenshotting and sending it on to the rest of your coaches on a group. And we're not trying to scare anyone off. We're not trying to add to anyone's workload. And the point that I always make when we do this workshop is, this might only have to be done once a month. You might take the same plan and stick with that same plan for 1 month or certainly 2 weeks of sessions, which means sitting down for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and planning out a session once every 2 or 3 weeks, sending it off to the coaches. And of course, you're going to have variation from session to session. So one game might not work. It might not be challenging enough. It might be too difficult. But in the next week, you alter the game, or you refine the game to make it, or the exercise, whatever, to make it more applicable to the group that you're working with. But this doesn't mean that you need to spend an hour before every single session on top of all the other stuff you've got going on in your life. This is done once every 2 or 3 weeks. You send it off to your coaches. Everyone's on the same page. And that means if you are stuck in traffic, like Paulie mentioned, that everyone has the plan, everyone knows what's going on, and it doesn't all fall apart then when you miss out. But I think the point is just to not be daunted by it. We're not adding extra work onto anyone. It's just once every 2 or 3 weeks doing this and being a bit more proactive will hopefully help if we are stuck in traffic and we don't make it to the session point.
Yeah, cheers for that, Dave. So guys, that's from myself and Dave. That's all. And I'm going to hand it back to Niall now. And if anyone has any questions on anything, you can fire it away.
So, guys, we'll be informal enough about this, and I'm conscious of the time. And we said we wouldn't keep this more than an hour, and we started a bit after 8. So there's a couple of questions in the chat there, and you probably answered one of them already. So James asked, will we get a copy of the slides? And Mark asked, what is the name of the app you were talking about there, Paul?
I tell you, the app and all will be on. It's actually on. So I'll send that. That'll go out to everyone on email tomorrow. I won't be sending out the slides themselves, but the booklet is there if anyone is looking for it. I know Dave does look like Ryan Tuberty, but this is not the late show. Not everyone is getting a copy of it. So if anyone needs a copy of it, just go through your GPO. There'll be a small cost just for the printing, which will be a £5, and we can get it out to you. On the video you'll get tomorrow, we'll show you the app to download and show you the software for the computer. They're both free, and it's handy to have both. And we prefer doing it on the computer, but you can do it on the app too, on the phone if you need to. It's quite easy.
Thanks, Paul. Just before I wrap up, guys, any other questions?
Sorry, Niall, could I just bring the attention maybe that Be Ready to Play, that initiative that was started last week there. Anybody who's on the learning.gaa.ie site, particularly for youth, adult and advanced players, is a very detailed program. It's going to run for the whole season, and it's equivalent to having like your own S&C coach. There's videos up there. You log on to the learning.gaa site, register on that, and then you enroll on the one. It's, as I say, for youth, that'll be 13 to 17, and then adult, and also for advanced players as well, or elite players. So I only logged onto it last week. It only just started last week, but it looks very good actually. I've watched a few of the videos actually, and they're well worth going through.
Thanks, Larry. Larry has a stake in that as well. So everyone that logs on, Larry gets a few back into the account.
I don't. Right, not.
Any other questions, guys? Okay, so listen, it's just pretty much 9 o'clock. So folks, hopefully that was valuable in some sort of shape or form to everyone that took the time to log on, which we really, really appreciate. As Paul said at the start, obviously everyone's circumstances are different. Some people might be in a club where they have this type of resource already developed, and others might have little bits and pieces, and others might have nothing at their fingertips. So what we're going to do is, if it's useful, you can use it, and then there's some clubs that maybe might be able to integrate this with what they have already. So that's something that maybe we can try and link in with your GPOs and coaching groups in your own clubs. And look, if nobody has anything else, guys, thanks a million to everyone for logging on. A special thanks to Paul and Dave for pulling this all together. And that's all we have, folks. So thanks a million.
Very good. Well done, Paul. Well done, Dave.
Thank you.
Well done, Dave.
Thanks,
Thank
you. Super stuff, guys. Thanks so much. Well done. Fair play.
Thanks. Good lads.
Thank
lads
you.
and ladies. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Margaret, well done.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you. Cheers. Forgot about Dave.